thank you very much for taking your time to help us familiarize ourselves with Machon Lev's newest project. It was recently reported that you just launched a new Hesder program that'll enable Chareidi students to combat cyber terrorism on the computer and do so from the dormitory rooms in their yeshivas. Can you elaborate a little bit about this program?
It's an interesting depiction of it. Maybe we can get some of the terminology straight and we'll try to clarify things. The Hesder program, in its original conception, is a program where guys combine a number of years of yeshiva learning with a number of years of army service. The Chareidi world needed a different kind of combination, and really it was an initiative that started outside of the Jerusalem College of Technology, outside of the Lev Academic Center, where people said, look, they went to the army and they said, we have guys who are very talented, they really want to spend their time learning Torah, they do eventually need a career. They haven't been to the army yet, and many of them come from backgrounds where they have problems with doing regular army service. Can we create a program which would allow them to integrate preparation for the army service with the yeshiva environment, do army service, and then come out at the end of their army service with skills that would allow them to be employable in the broader market? This resulted in a program where what is now happening is you have guys coming out of high school who have some background. It's typically not a full college preparatory background, but they do have some secular studies background, which is a little bit different than many of the issues in the Chareidi world in Israel today. They have that background, they come, we are hosting that program on the JCT campus. They have their own Rosh Yeshiva because they really want a style of learning that is consistent with a more Chareidi approach to things. They come, they do 2 years in which they are part-time learning and part-time getting the basics of cyber technology training. That program then leads them to 2 years worth of army service, where they are now using that training and doing really high-level cyber stuff in the army. The idea being that when they finish the 2 years in the army, they now have had 2 years worth of training, which is not a full academic degree, but it's significant. They've had 2 years worth of real world experience, and at that point they can decide. They can either take what they've got and run. They've got the equivalent, say, of a technician's training on a formal basis with the work experience and go out into the market, or they can come back to us, to our regular academic program, and with an additional 2 years of studies, get either a degree in computer science or a degree in computer software engineering.
Is that transferable to other universities as well? Or
yes, it should be. It should be. The courses that we're giving them are fully accredited courses. Again, each academic program would have to decide for itself what it accepts and what it doesn't accept. We're gearing it so that on one hand they are well prepared for their army experience, but on the other hand they have the basics for an academic degree which they could complete after their army experience.
And the army experience, they can do this from the comfort of their, if it's comfortable, of their own dormitory room?
Not as far as I know. I think that, I don't know where that got into the representation.
I think that was in the Jerusalem Post article.
It might, well, I think what they're doing now is the preparatory period is certainly being done from the comfort of their dormitory room. But I think the actual 2 years of army service is going to require real hands-on being in the army.
But they could go home at night.
So that's the interesting point, which still hasn't developed because it's the first year of the program. I think the plan as it is now on paper will allow them to continue a connection with their rabbeim, with their yeshiva, even during the 2 years of army service. Whether it necessarily will send them home every night, I'm not sure.
Who would make that decision? The Army itself?
I think that's a matter, it's a programmatic issue which is being worked out with the Army. Remember, the Army has already made a significant concession because most young men in Israel, if they haven't done their Army service, are not allowed to do post-high school academic work. They have to first take care of Army and then go on. The only exception to that till now has been programs under the general umbrella called Atudaim. The Atuda program is an interesting one where guys come out of high school, they do a college degree, then go to the Army and are guaranteed that they can serve in their discipline, but it often requires a even longer than usual commitment to the Army. Here, as an accommodation and as an effort, a conscious effort to recruit from within the Chareidi world, what you're doing is you're reducing the duration of the Army service. These guys would only do 2 years of service under conditions that have already been pioneered by the Nachal Chareidi program and a number of other programs designed to accommodate the Chareidi world and to make it as comfortable as possible. So they're in a sense kind of atudaim. They're coming after high school, but they're not making the extended commitment that an atudai would make. They're also not getting the full academic degree before Army service that an atudai would get. So it's a little.
Can you tell me a little bit about this cyber terrorism program? What will these students be able to do? What will they be doing for the Army? What's their daily routine like?
I think it's pretty clear that a large part of what the Army intelligence units are doing now is figuring out a way to combat what we used to just refer to as hackers. But I guess when hackers get malicious enough and militant enough with political and international aspirations and tasks, we start talking about terrorism in a formal way.
That's a defensive
Yeah,
position.
no, these
is
are
there
not.
Is there any offensive
I don't
work going to
think
happen
so,
here?
but I think that frankly those are issues that would probably be best left to the government people and to the actual programs. But I mean, we have a history from JCT of our guys going into intelligence units, guys who come out of the high school that's associated with us, guys who finish their degrees. We have many, many guys who are very high up in the Army, both in intelligence units and in other aspects of the Army. The distinctions of attacking as opposed to defending, I think, are distinctions that are best left to the programs themselves.
Okay.
And we'll have to wait and see. As I say, this new program that you're referring to is only in its first year.
How many would the program be able to handle?
I think the capacity is essentially limitless. To some extent, it depends on the Army, because remember, the Army is making concessions to these guys, allowing guys to deviate from the standard formula and get involved in academic studies, in post-high school studies, even though they haven't done their Army service, and yet they're not bound by standard Atudei rules. So that's one issue. I think that within the context that they're now working, this Hesder Chareidi program has a group of somewhere between 15 to 20. It's, as I say, because it's new, it's still fluid. Could they accommodate another group equally that large? I suspect the answer is yes.
Okay. These skills that they'll be gaining, do you see a significant market for them to be able to enter the workforce both in Israel and in the United States?
Yeah, I think that was exactly the intention. I think that the designers of the program needed to come up with something that would be appealing to the Army. As the Army is making a concession, what's in it for them? Well, what's in it for them is partly the social issues of integrating the Chareidi community, but it's partly that they're getting high-quality manpower who has been trained in areas where they really need that manpower, and cyber technology is one of them. So that's one issue. But from the other side, in order to make it worthwhile for the guys, you wanted to not only give them a skill set that would be valuable in an Army context, but now, given that so many businesses have such a large part of their activity on the internet, data protection, protecting company, whether it's company
like
records.
Target,
I think
and all sorts
all
of
it.
companies
I think
every day.
all of these things now, we're in an era now where anyone who is trained in cyber technology for military purposes, we hope, and I think the design of the program is such, that it will be rather easy to move that over into the civilian market.
How long have you been with Machon Lev? Your position now? As well?
Actually, very, very recently. I came on board at JCT in the 1st of October this year.
Mm-hmm.
My family and I made Aliyah in 1995, and I've been a professor of chemistry at Bar Ilan University since then. My research is still at Bar Ilan, and I go there one day a week, but my main activity is really in the Lev Academic Center, and that's...
And your personal background, you were in Caltech, if
I grew up in Miami, went to YU as an undergraduate in chemistry, went to Caltech, finished a PhD in chemistry there, did a postdoc at UCLA, and then took a faculty position at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, where we were from 77 to 95, and then came here in 95.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about the girls' division?
Yeah, it's interesting because JCT, as it was originally conceived in Professor Lev's original vision, was a small kind of boutique men's engineering, learn Torah, do engineering. They only offered a very limited number of disciplines, which were basically electronics and electro-optics and computer science. And then the policy decision was made on the order of 15 years ago to broaden that. And the breadth came in two ways. Number one, they opened the women's division. The women's division has a unit called Machon Tal, which is for women from the Dati Leumi community. And there are three actually, other divisions within our programs for women from the Chareidi community. Machon Lustig is located in the Ramat Gan Bnei Brak area. And in Yerushalayim, in addition to Machon Tal, we have both a Machon Dat and a Machon Tvuna, each of which serving a slightly different population within the Chareidi world. So the women's division now, starting from an institution which was in the hundreds of men only, we're now an institution of about 5,000 students with about 2,500 men and 2,500 women. So it's very, very different in that sense from what it was. But by the fact that we have still retained complete gender separation, that is the men's campus and the women's campus are kept completely separate, courses are separate, activities are separate, to that extent it has positioned us to take this Dati Leumi institution and provide what I think is going to prove to be a very valuable service to the Chareidi world. It's a comfortable place, it's a religious place, whether it's in terms of the atmosphere, the kashrus, the courses they're walking into. Both Chareidi men, of which we now have about 600 Chareidi men out of our 2,500 men.
Wow.
We have about 1,100 Chareidi women in our various Chareidi women programs. And the idea is that they should be comfortable and they should get an opportunity to have a high quality academic education without having to compromise the personal issues. And that's what I think we've done.